Welcome to Attunement with Courtney O'Keefe. I am your host, Courtney. Today, I'm so excited to have Stacy Webster on for our Heart Chakra guest story. Stacy is a friend of mine in town, and I've always been so inspired by her story, and I cannot wait for you all to hear what she has to say today. Stacy is born and raised in St. Louis, but currently resides in Glen Ellen with her family. She is a small business owner with a focus on interior design and social media marketing. Stacy is the co-founder of Young Grief Society, an online community for young women who have lost their mother. Stacy enjoys art, photography, spending time with her family and friends, traveling, music, and of course, being a full-time mom to her son, Logan. She is also the author of Susie the Golden Penguin, her first children's book. Stacy, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I would love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background and who you are as a person before we dive into your heart chakra story.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as Courtney introduced, I'm Stacy Webster. I've been in Glen Ellen for, gosh, I think almost 7 years now. It's gone by so quickly. Born and raised Midwest girl. I've lived in a few different cities, DC, Bloomington, where I went to college. But I love Glen Ellen. It's a wonderful area. So many women that just support each other. It's a great community. I just feel like we're in a little bit of a bubble here. But as Courtney said, I am a big believer in signs. That is one thing that I always have thought very uniquely of Courtney, because unless you experience something as a big loss or you've gone through something traumatic in life, it's hard. You can sympathize with those, but you can't necessarily understand unless you've experienced it. And I lost my mom at a very, 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 very young age. And so I have really shaped who I am because of it. And my grandma basically raised me after that. And I think I've just really every year become more stronger and stronger as a person. And I'm 41 and I feel the most confident that I ever have in my whole life. And I love helping other women, whether it's designing their homes or doing their social or going out to meet for a drink and socializing. I'm a very happy, positive person, and I am here to help others. And if it can help their journey, whether it's one person or another, that's basically what I love to do. And, I think what you're doing is amazing. So
Thank you.
I'm all here for it.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned your mom a little bit. Could you get
Yes.
into the kind of the nitty-gritty as much as you want to share about that
hmm
loss and how that affected you as a child?
Absolutely. So I was really close growing up with my mom. My parents were together for years. And they had, one of those marriages where it was very normal. They loved each other, they fought, we traveled. I mean, it was just, I grew up in a typical household. I had one sister and we went on lots of family trips. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. She had a wonderful, wonderful voice. She played the piano, she did music. She was really known as, Susie Shapiro in St. Louis. She was just the most selfless woman that you've ever met. And I feel like I'm very, very similar to her in that way. Sometimes it's a bad thing because, sometimes I care too much, whether it's about friends or people, that type of thing. So sometimes it can be a negative, but I look at it as a positive. She was diagnosed at 35 when I was very, very young. I actually have a picture that's embedded in my brain, and she's wearing a turban. She just finished chemo. I'm laying there with my little jingle baby doll. This is back in the 90s or maybe even 80s at this point. And, she still took care of me and my sister, and she was just so sick for so long. And then she got out of that, which is wonderful. They did just a bilateral mastectomy. And so in the 90s, if you're not familiar with breast cancer and how things have progressed, they didn't know nearly as much as they do now. And so if they would have done both breasts and did even mastectomy, I think she would have been alive by now, because 14 years later, she was diagnosed with metastatic bone cancer, stage 4 breast, and a cell lived in her backbone, for years, laying dormant. And she was on all types of tamoxifen, and she did scans, and nobody caught it. And it's so aggravating because it just shouldn't have been there. So at the end of the day, I was really young. I think I was 21 or 20 when she was diagnosed, because I was about 23 when she passed away. So at the time, I had a boyfriend who was, in my life for years. We were very serious, and he was my rock, because I literally watched my mom disintegrate into basically a coma. She was moved to a nursing home in the last 2 weeks of her life. It was traumatizing. It was awful. It was terrible. So some women get to lose their moms in so many different ways. And I've had friends that have lost their moms, to the flu, which is how we started, the Instagram Young Grief Society, because we both lost our moms same month, a couple years apart. It was just so wild, 2 weeks apart, I believe. And her mom passed away of the flu. And so I had that advantage, which I'm so happy that I did, that I was able to say goodbye to my mom and she could leave, messages. I started saving emails until, the day that she passed away. But I'm sure a lot of women can understand this. When you're in your teens, you are not a nice person. You are going through
Yeah.
a lot, and it's like, I wish that I had my mom when I was who I am now, because you're more mature, you're growing up, you have kids, you're married, completely different. So that is, I think, the hardest pill for me to swallow. I mean, my mom and I were very, very close, but the last couple years I got even closer. But I was in college still. I was very young and I had to grow up very quickly. I took care of her a lot, and I've been through a lot of losses in my life. A lot of family members passed away, close aunts and uncles and grandmas. And so my grandparents, who I was very close with in St. Louis, they stepped in, and my grandma, we were always close, but she just became, oh my gosh, the mom I never had. And most people lose their grandmas after their mom, and mine was, the other way around. So,
Grief I like to think of as like an open
mhm,
wound, and it's never really
yes,
fully closed. You like experience
yes,
little things that remind you of it, and you always are like pulled back
mhm,
to that space and healing.
yeah,
So I can't even
absolutely.
imagine. Yeah. How do you think that that loss impacted the way you experience love or connection in, like, I guess you could say your college years, but even as a child, as you're like going through this treatment with your mom, how did that affect the way you experience love?
Courtney, I vaguely remember the first time she went through treatments. I think I was 5. I was so young. I remember my mom had the best attitude about everything. She never complained. She just, I just don't remember her ever talking about it or having my sister and I worried. We would laugh about her wigs, because back in the 90s, wigs were so hot, and I don't know, how she did it. I mean, today wigs don't, it doesn't even look like you're wearing a wig, but back then, it was, so she would take it off when we got to my grandma's for, the holidays, and we would all start laughing. But these are things that, these are flashes. These are like the quickest memories, because I was so, so, so young. But I remember she always had the best attitude. And then in my 20s, early 20s, again, best attitude. I mean, my mom, I just, there's things about her that she never thought anything bad in the world. And so I inherited that quality, for so long. It's just amazing to me how she just always thought the good of people. She always looked at the most, positive light. My sister and I were going through a lot when she was sick, and she, made sure that we were tested for BRCA gene. She just took care of everyone before herself. And that's where I think I get a lot of it from. When I come in from a busy day, it's the dog, it's Logan, and then it's me. And that's just how I operate. It's just, I think a lot of moms have that instinct. But my my mom was just so funny, because she would, soak her feet in Epsom salt, and I would lotion her legs, and she would laugh, but she was in so much pain, probably more pain than I can even imagine, like in her back, and just she went through surgery after surgery, and just so many laughs, because she just always had the best attitude. So I think my key takeaway from my childhood was just my mom always had my sister and I's back. She was so, so, so proud of us. I have letters that I saved from her. I have emails. I have just everything. I wear her jewelry to this day. I just have her clothes. It's just every reminder. It's just incredible that I have, because when you lose your mom that young, you're not even 30 yet.
Mhm.
And I think some people might, say, oh, well, it's been so long, like, aren't you over it? No, it's your mom. Like, you're never going to get over it. I have a wonderful mother-in-law. My dad's been with someone for 10 years, over 10 years, whose ironically name is the same as my mom.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just something I know. It's so wild. And you are so big with signs. And I have to tell you, because she died on March 3rd, 2008. And let me tell you, I have a thing for threes.
Mhm.
Actually, I got my first tattoo and I have her, her little S and a little heart. And I want to do a 3-3 somewhere because that is just my number. I believe in those types of signs. And so, yeah,
Yes.
I think that's very, very important to just know that she's still looking, out for you after all those years. And I even have a card, and it says, you'll hear me talking to you. You're going to be the best mom, the best wife, whoever it is that day. And she knew she was going to die. And I think she was scared, but she never, ever showed it.
Yeah. During your
Yeah,
grieving period, what were the most impactful ways that people helped you during that time?
that's a great question, because I think it's very hard to be on the giving side. Even my best friends didn't know what to say. And it's so hard because we had, her funeral, and then we had Shiva. And I remember going out into her closet and just crying, and then going back out into the, area where we held the Shiva in our house, thinking, wow, we're having a party for my mom and she's not here. And this is just, it was the strangest feeling. It's almost just like a moment of shock. And I think knowing that my friends were always there for me, no matter what, doesn't matter, what time of day it was, I just felt so supported and loved by so many family members, so many friends. And I think just knowing that they were there helped me. My biggest thing was is that, and I still have friends, like my closest friends who knew my mom to this day, that will every year text me,
Mm,
like, thinking of you. But unfortunately, the world goes on. And I think after like maybe a year or so, people stop. And I think that was the hardest thing. Like, how can you keep going, or how can you like not understand, that like the world is stopping for me, but you guys are also going. And it's just life. And like you said, grief comes in so many different ways, that I think at this point where you're like, I can't keep going. But then I stayed so busy that summer that she died. I was worried if I stopped and laid in bed for one day and cried, that I wouldn't be able to get back up. And that was the year that my grandparents took us to Paris. I went to California. I mean, I went everywhere. I visited her dad in Wheeling, West Virginia, where she was originally from. And my mom had three brothers. They're all gone. Her dad is gone. Her mom is gone. So it's very hard. We still have a lot of family members left, but it's just, I don't know, grief is just a funny way, because you're still going through it. And, I think people just kind of get to that point where they check in, but it's different. So I think that was the hardest adjustment, if that makes any sense.
yeah, that totally makes sense because you still feel it, the after currents
Mm-hmm.
of it, and then people continue to move on. That's interesting. I have
Right.
a good friend who
Right.
had lost her dad, and every now and again, I think about checking in, but I haven't. So that's like a good
Mm-hmm.
reminder to anyone if you know someone who has lost
Yes.
someone, that it's really important, no matter how far away you are from that time, to check in
Hmm.
with that person.
Because, like you said, there's so many signs that come up. To this day, I don't know if anyone has seen the movie. So Sarah Jessica Parker. It's one of our favorite Christmas movies. We watch it every year. But mom dies of breast cancer. I can't think of the
Oh,
name of it. But I mean, I still cannot watch the last 5 minutes where they put, the star on top of the tree because the mom's not there. I mean, there are things that just trigger me. And I think years later, that's just how it is when you lose somebody that close. But yeah, it is. It's definitely a good reminder to check in. I think it's so important.
in those moments when you do feel triggered, what are some tools that you lean onto to help you like calm your nervous system and come back to center?
Mm. So, it's very hard to let myself just cry, like ugly cry for a long time. That happens, I don't know, once every few years. I end up getting like kind of in this mindset where I can't get out of it, and I'll read letters and I'll go back in time, and then I think, you know what? This isn't doing anything. My mom, knows that I'm happy. She always wanted to be a mom, and I just kind of reset myself. I instead of those big moments where I cry hysterically, the holidays are the hardest, and I think I just sort of repress myself with something of hers, and this might sound silly, but I have her perfume. And so it's just kind of nice to smell that, all these years later. It reminds me of her, or, you know, put on her jewelry. I have her wedding ring. I mean, just all these things that just connect me to her, brings me down to earth and sort of grounds me. And I think that is the best thing is that instead of looking at it in a negative way, okay, I don't have her anymore, but I know that she is an angel looking down. And I'm not a super religious person, but I just truly, truly believe that, after all of the letters and everything she's ever wrote me, I think it's just one of those things where you have to bring yourself back. You have to sort of calm yourself down. But there are triggers. Holidays is the biggest. Holidays, her birthday, those types of things. Those are all really big triggers.
That's beautiful. I love that
Yeah.
you have her things that you can to help ground you. I just think that's so
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah, one of my, I know it's so far away for the viewers, but one of my favorite is this necklace that my dad made for my sister and I. And it's part of her wedding band. And I have her original gold wedding band. And so, even like her old, nightgowns. So yes, I feel like it brings me closer. It's not necessarily going to see her grave because she's buried in St. Louis. I only go when I'm home, bring her flowers, but that doesn't even necessarily make me feel closer to her. It's just like having a piece of her there. I have a picture of her on my nightstand, with a penguin that my son gave me, and a letter from her, and then he wrote like "I love you, Mom." I mean, it's just kind of all ties together, and it's just, I don't know, really nice. It's kind of comforting.
Yeah. And one thing I love about you and your story so much is that you've turned this like pain and heartbreak into something so beautiful with Young Grief Society. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Mhm. Yeah, so my best friend and I, Diane Stoffel, she lives in, well, she was in Texas for a while and she's moved, but we've been best friends for years. We met senior year at Indiana University, and ironically, we both lost our moms. And it was her loss was on March 14th, and mine was on March 3rd. It's just very wild. And I believe it was, I don't know if it was 2 years later. I can't remember the year. Very, very close. Might have even been the same year, but we just connected on this level where we thought, you know what, we need to do something good. And I had been a part of Empower Her for a couple years, and that just really inspired me to do something on our own. And so we talked for like a good year. We're like, should we create a group? Should we create a website? Like, what can we do? And we both were busy working moms, and we just were trying to do something that would give us a little flexibility to still help women. And so we came up with this Young Grief Society. It's targeted towards young women who have lost their moms, whether they've lost their moms or they're going through the journey of losing their moms. If their mother is sick or they just, know that it's coming. We just like to guide women. And so we created this on Instagram where we get lots of DMs throughout the week, which is actually really nice because they come to us for advice and we specifically say, we just want you to know, we are not licensed therapists or, psychiatrists, anything like that. We're just two women, that lost their mom at a really young age, and we know exactly what you're going through. And so we've done interviews, we try to share stories, and so it's just been wonderful. It's a great platform, and I think we've helped a lot of women. We go through phases, kind of what we plan on doing. And I think sometimes life gets in the way, but we always try to be consistent with helping these women because I certainly didn't have that when I lost my mom. I might have had maybe one friend that have lost their mom. I was the first, really, and so I think it's just nice to have that. A lot of women just don't have that guidance. And then some of these women, it's really sad, they don't even have a relationship with their dads, or they might not have a grandma. I was so lucky. I had so many people in my corner, and so I think that was just really helpful to understand, like, have these women know, okay, you are not alone. That's the biggest thing. You are not alone, and we are here to help you.
That's beautiful. And I'm
So,
sure it's helped so many young women in that
mhm,
journey. Thank you for
yeah,
doing that.
I
It's
really
a
think it
beautiful,
has. Of course.
beautiful way to turn pain into purpose. I just think that's gorgeous. And also, your
Hmm.
children's book. Could you tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that as well?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to write a book. And you know how you've always wanted to do something, life gets in the way. It's hard. I went through a huge hysterectomy in January, so there's just things that life gets in the way. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. It's the perfect time. And I just did it. And my mom was a kindergarten teacher, and she, taught music and everything, but she loved penguins. Absolutely loved penguins, to the point where she actually adopted, a penguin at the St. Louis Zoo.
Oh,
St. Louis Zoo is, I know, it's so cute. Everybody in her school, knew Miss Shapiro loves penguins. So she had a million penguins on her desk. I'm talking like 75. She had a whole
stop.
corner. It was just so cute. Yes. And so I thought, I'm a big person I love gold. I feel like you're either a gold person or you're a silver person. I don't know. I've been a gold person my whole life. And my mom, like I said, she just stood out. She had sparkle, she had shine. She talked people's ear off. She had a great laugh, she was the best. I mean, I don't think anybody would ever say anything bad about her. She was just that good of a person. And so I thought, I'm going to make a book about Susie the Golden Penguin, and I illustrated and wrote it myself. Of course, I had a publishing company help me, with the layout. I wanted to do something that honors her, because this is years later, and I thought, what can I do that's going to really bring her alive? And it doesn't have to be the bestseller, it doesn't have to be on the New York's, bestseller list, but I just wanted it to bring happiness to people. And it was such a fun project. I was so proud of it. My son, I dedicated the book to my niece and my son, and Logan just absolutely loves it, to the point where he has like a lot of it memorized. And he was so proud to tell people, "Oh, my mom wrote it." And then I got to go to his kindergarten class and read it. And that was special to me because my mom taught kindergarten. So it was just a full circle moment. I couldn't believe, that I was reading this to my son. And I just know that she would just be so incredibly proud.
That
So,
is
yeah,
so magical.
thank you.
I love that so much. And oh, you mentioned a little bit about your hysterectomy, and I don't know if you want to talk about this a little bit, because
I'm an open book, Courtney.
I feel like this also ties into like the heart chakra space, because you kind of have to grieve that loss as
Hmm.
well.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think enough women talk about this, but endometriosis is massive in this country. And people don't take it seriously. My friends would never ever deteriorate what I went through, but a stranger would say, "Oh, you're canceling plans because you have cramps." No, 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 no. It was not cramps. This was a debilitating, you know, disease that took over my body, and I've had it for years, but it got to the point where it was just awful, and it's invisible. You don't see it. So there was just so many things that led me to, the specialist, and to this decision, and I don't have a regret. Actually, the only regret I do have is not doing it sooner. But it's just life changing. And I think a lot of women are either scared, or they're in doubt, or, you know, it's really important to be in tune with your body. And I think as we age and get older, especially because my mom was, diagnosed at 35 with breast cancer, and she was the one who discovered it. I don't mess around. So if there's something off, like, I will go to a doctor, and that does not make me hypochondriac. That makes me somebody who's on top of your health. And I think it's very important. I've had numerous breast biopsies, lots of scares, and it's just something that I think is really important, that women don't always see, or they blow it off. And I've seen bloggers that have, kind of getting off on a tangent, but I've seen bloggers say, oh, well, I just thought it was a lump. I didn't go to the doctor. And a year later, they have stage 4 breast cancer. And it's terrifying. So, I mean, I think the biggest message to women is listen to your body. If there is something off, get it checked out. There is, I don't know, I'd rather be safe than sorry. That is my motto. But yes, with the hysterectomy, I think it's just, like I said, life changing. I'm so glad that I did it. Um, 2 or 3 weeks out of the month, I had good times. And then it was like a week and a half was just, I knew I couldn't really travel. I couldn't go out. I couldn't work out. There's just so many things. So no regrets there at all. I know my mom would have supported it. I also had breast reduction done when I was in college because I was so scared of having breast cancer. I did not want to have that weight on me. My mom was terrified that we would, get it. And I was too young for a mastectomy. It was the best decision of my life, and I have no regrets to this day.
What was that recovery process like for you?
It was hard. I
Yeah.
think because I had a C-section in 2018, but I was younger. um, And I feel like it was very similar to that. But I also don't really like a lot of pain meds. So for me, I probably, made it a little bit harder because I like did the whole thing on Tylenol basically. But it was very hard. I ended up not doing physical therapy. My recovery went very well. Like everything went great. I just loved the doctor that I worked with. He was wonderful. I think every doctor should be that attentive, and just he was incredible. Um, but yes, it was definitely rough. I think the hardest part was too is just emotionally, because when I spent the night, almost 2 nights, but I was there for a night, and my husband comes in the room and he says, look, the doctor's going to come in and talk to you. I want you to know that there was a lot more serious things going on than, what you had imagined. And keep in mind, Courtney, my first nurse, when I got up to the room, her name was Susan, which was my mom's name.
Oh my God.
Sign right there. I was on the delivery floor because it was the stomach thing. There was a mural of penguins by my room, next door to my room. I'm dead serious. I have pictures next door to my room. And I got up to the room at 333. And
Oh my,
like I said, I am not crazy with this stuff, but I
yeah.
believe that my mom was right there. Because I was scared, I was in pain. I didn't really, I've never been through this before. So that was just amazing. And I remember I was so drugged up, when I walked in, I was like, oh my gosh, my mom's name was Susan. This is my angel. I was just cracking up the nurses. They had a great experience at the hospital. But what was very scary is when the doctor came in and said, your endometriosis was literally on your, I think it's called urethra, or the tube that's heading to your kidneys. It's called the silent, deadly kidney killer. So if I hadn't come in for that hysterectomy within 6 months, he estimated, it would have gone to my kidneys, and I would have had big problems, major problems.
God.
Because what this does is it latches to your organs. And he said it's not cancer, but it basically is cancer, if that makes sense. It's similar in a lot of ways. And there's no way to really stop it or slow it down. The other thing to keep in mind for women who are listening, if you're ever in this situation, I was scared to get on artificial hormones. My mom's cancer was estrogen based, so I never got on any type of birth control to pause or slow down the endometriosis because I was so scared of developing breast cancer. So I think that's the thing. And I do believe that for women, at least for me, when I got COVID and when I got the COVID vaccination, it changed my periods, it made them worse. It sort of really made it go in a different direction.
Mhm.
So, um, you know, I think it's important that you just listen to your body overall, and you are the only one that can do that. And I think that, I don't know, some women just put it off because they're busy or they're moms, but it's just, this is all we have, is our health. And you just
Yes.
have to be your biggest advocate.
Oh
So,
my
yeah.
goodness.
But that whole thing was crazy, Courtney. And I mean, it was It was wild. Yeah.
That is so wild. And also talk about like a really important lesson in listening to your body's intuition, because
Hmm.
if you hadn't listened to yourself, like would you ever
Hmm.
have gone into the doctors? Would you ever have kind of advocated for yourself to get it removed, because it could have taken a
Right.
completely different direction. So I'm so proud of you for
Absolutely.
listening to yourself. And if
Thank
you are
you.
listening to this now and you're like, oh, I was thinking about something earlier, and listen to
Hmm.
yourself because you know yourself best.
Yep. Absolutely. 1,000%. And I think that is so important. I actually was, they interviewed me, the Endometriosis Foundation of America, and I shared my story with thousands of people. And I know there's a million people out there like me, but I think it's so important. You have to be your biggest advocate. It's just, no one's going to look out for you except for yourself. Whether you, even if you're married, or you have a spouse or a partner or a girlfriend, I just think it is so important because things change very quickly. And with my mom, it was one mistake and, it cost her life basically. So,
Yeah. If you could describe your heart and what it feels like, what words would you give your heart?
okay, I love that. Oh my gosh. I would say, and I'm not doing this to toot my own horn. I'm the least
Go
conceited person
toot
on the
toot
planet,
your own horn, please.
but I I am very, very, very kind and I'm very thoughtful. And I think a lot of my friends could probably say that. I've had when I was going through that whole hysterectomy thing, I had a cyst, very large cyst, sitting on my right hip. I was in more pain than I ever even imagined. And my girlfriend was in a lot of trouble. Her husband went through some medical, I mean, it was bad. She was in way worse than I can imagine. And I wasn't driving because the pain was going down my leg. And I thought, you know what? I've got to bring her something. And I brought her a whole bag of goodies. And my love language is just, I think, making people feel good. So my heart would be the biggest cheerleader. I think that you can name it like Stacy's heart, the biggest cheerleader. That's just who I am. I don't like drama and I don't like negativity. I mean, obviously people are going to have bad days and people are going to complain, and that's normal life. But I just love giving and I don't expect anything in return, but I just love making people, feel better about their day. And I think I get so much of that from my mom, really.
Mhm. I was just gonna say that sounds exactly how you described your mom. Could you share a song with us that helps you heal in moments of grief?
Yes. So ironically, my aunt sat down with my mom and she said, look, we're going to do a living will. And we're going to go over all the questions that you want to tell Randy, which is my dad, my sister Julie, and me. She was not really 100% with it at the end of her life, as you can imagine, because she went to her brain. But she did amazing. And my aunt laminated and made this amazing book, surprised us, gave it to us. I still have it, obviously, to this day. I read it all the time. And the last sentence, it says, whenever you listen to Frank Sinatra, that means that I'm there. That means that I'm with you. My mom was a huge Sinatra lover. I grew up going to more Broadway shows than you can imagine at the age of 7. And she just was a big, big Sinatra. So for me, it's like show tune music or Broadway music or Sinatra or just something that just makes me feel connected to her. There are some music that I just listen to and of course I cry, so it makes me more sad, but there are a lot of Sinatra songs that make me happy. So I would say anything Frank Sinatra related. Yeah.
I love that. And then if there is someone listening now that's going through a form of grief, what advice would you give to them?
Um Give yourself a break. I think with social media these days, oh my gosh, it's just pressure and competition and stress and addiction and there are so many positives but there's also negatives, and so I think if you are grieving, please don't compare your journey to somebody else's, and don't judge, don't allow your friends to give you judgment, or don't judge yourself because you might want to go to dinner with your friends and go out for an hour and say, you know what, I'm not feeling this anymore, I'm really sad, I just want to go home. But then you have other friends see you on Instagram with friends and you're out. And to them, they think, oh, she's doing just fine. Absolutely not. That is a snapshot in people's lives. And I think that's the biggest thing is just let yourself grieve because there is no time or, you know, correct pamphlet or instructions that is going to tell you how to grieve. It is just something that you need to let yourself do. And if it takes you the rest of your life, it's like a circle. There is no ending with grief. It might get easier, but it's going to change and it's not linear. So yeah, give yourself a break. That's what I would say.
That's beautiful. And then if people want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
Yes, so it's Young Grief Society. If you look on Instagram, you can absolutely follow us. We are very, very open and welcome to everyone. And, we've had some members say, or not members, but, our community members say, well, my dad is passing away. Can I still join? Absolutely. Just because we're focused on moms doesn't mean that we're not going to be here for you if you're losing a parent. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we would love that. And then I do have a business page as well. I also own and run Tregarin Design for social media and interior design, non-related, but that's sort of has to do with my grandma. So yeah, everything is very tied together.
It is. And your interior design is beautiful. I love following that page. You should go give
Oh,
Stacy a
thank
follow there.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on, Stacy. This was beautiful.
You're so welcome. Hopefully I can, help at least one person out there.
Yeah, I love all the stuff we touched on. So thank you for opening your heart and
Good.
sharing with us.
You're so welcome.
Visit ablealchemy.com to download your free chakra journal and to learn more about Able Alchemy. This is a place where your dreams and reality align. Through services like tarot and astrology readings, sound bath sessions, and intuitive branding for businesses looking to align with their manifestations and purpose through soul-led studies, such as astrology business energy analysis and chakra color theory. Follow along with Able Alchemy on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.